Section 110 of the Copyright Act addresses the use of copyrighted material in both the face-to-face classroom and the electronic classroom. Section 107 of the Copyright Act asks us to consider 4 factors to determine whether our use of copyrighted material can be considered fair use. Fair use is when we use copyrighted material without the permission of, nor payment to, the copyright holder. All 4 factors outlined in this section of the Copyright Act should be considered in the decision to use copyrighted material, since no single factor dictates whether a particular use will be deemed fair use. Fair use is a legal doctrine that promotes freedom of expression by permitting the unlicensed use of copyright-protected works in certain circumstances. Section 107 of the Copyright Act provides the statutory framework for determining whether something is a fair use and identifies certain types of uses, such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research, as examples of activities that may qualify as fair use. Section 107 calls for consideration of the following 4 factors in evaluating a question of fair use. Purpose and character of the use, including whether the use is of a commercial nature or is for non-profit educational purposes. Courts look at how the party claiming fair use is using the copyrighted work, and are more likely to find that non-profit educational and non-commercial uses are fair. This does not mean, however, that all non-profit education and non-commercial uses are fair and all commercial uses are not fair. Instead, courts will balance the purpose and character of the use against the other factors below. Additionally, transformative uses are more likely to be considered fair. Transformative uses are those that add something new with a further purpose or different character and do not substitute for the original use of the work. Nature of the copyrighted work. This factor analyzes the degree to which the work that was used relates to copyright's purpose of encouraging creative expression. Thus, using a more creative or imaginative work, such as a novel, movie, or song, is less likely to support a claim of fair use than using a factual work, such as a technical article or news item. In addition, use of an unpublished work is less likely to be considered fair. Amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyright work as a whole. Under this factor, courts look at both the quality and quantity of the copyrighted material that was used. If the use includes a large portion of the copyrighted work, fair use is less likely to be found. If the use employs only a small amount of copyrighted material, fair use is more likely. That said, some courts have found use of an entire work to be fair under certain circumstances, and in other contexts, using even a small amount of a copyrighted work was determined not to be fair because the section was an important part, or the heart of the work. Effect of the use upon the potential market for, or value of, the copyrighted work. Here, courts review whether and to what extent the unlicensed use harms the existing or future market for the copyright owner's original work. In assessing this factor, courts consider whether the use is hurting the current market for the original work, for example, by displacing sales of the original, and/or whether the use could cause substantial harm if it were to become widespread. In addition to the above, other factors may also be considered by a court in weighing a fair use question, depending upon the circumstances. Courts evaluate fair use claims on a case-by-case basis, and the outcome of any given case depends on a fact-specific inquiry. This means that there are no formula to ensure that a predetermined percentage or amount of work or a specific number of words, lines, pages, copies may be used without permission. Please note that the Copyright Office is unable to provide specific legal advice to individual members of the public about questions of fair use.